Welcome to episode 100 of Football 301. Charles McDonald and I are hanging out today. Nate Tice is going to join us later to reveal our all 2025 all average team. That is the most average players at every position. Charles, what a coup for us to be here on episode 100 without our fearless leader, Nate Tice.
Yeah, thank God, right? Finally free to spread our wings a little bit for episode 100, you know? No, I really just like to shout out the New York Jets for giving us a few things to talk about today. You know, we're in that last little stretch before training camp starts. It can still be a little bare bone, but then the Jets came through with some big time extensions that we can gnaw at. Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. We have some extension news to talk through today because, like I said, Nate's going to join us for the all-average team. But Charles and I have a few cleanup items here to hit, as we always do, before we get into the rankings. Starting with two big extensions for the New York Jets. I'm just going to group these in together. A couple days ago, they gave Garrett Wilson an extension, 4 years, $130 million total, a $90 million in guaranteed. $31 million after only playing 3 seasons for the Jets wide receiver. Then today, they also extended cornerback Sauce Gardner, 4 years, $120.4 million deal. That is $30.1 million per year. He's the highest paid cornerback in NFL history. Charles, reaction to these two pieces of news here?
Well, I mean, the Sauce one, I get how you end up there, but there should be maybe a little bit of concern, I guess, after how last year went for him. I mean, I still think he's can still be one of the best cornerbacks in the league. I mean, everything before last season suggested he is one of the best cornerbacks in the league. I mean, he was basically dominant his first couple seasons in there before everything fell apart for the Jets last season. And then with Wilson, I don't know. I guess part of me recoils, seeing wow, really, like that much for Garrett Wilson. But when you look at the Jets, they can't afford to let him walk. You know, they don't really have enough playmakers where they could let him walk and then potentially just replace him just like that. So I think he's better. I think he's obviously better than the statistics that he's put up. But for him to end up being, one of one of the 5 most highly paid wide receivers in the league now, or at least in that top 6-7 range, now you got to go get the production, and that's still going to be a little bit tough in the circumstances that they have around him. So, it's funny because Joe Douglas ended up getting fired last year, but these were 2 of his big hits as far as being able to add some premier talent to the team. So it is kind of interesting to see, what players they're prioritizing, but I don't think they could really walk into the next era without Sauce and Garrett walked up. They just mean too much to this team right now.
Right, and I think there's something to be said about a new regime coming in and rewarding 2 good soldiers, especially a guy like Garrett Wilson who has every right to be frustrated by what he's played with. And you mentioned the production, it's not fully there in terms of a guy he's between AJ Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown in terms of per year money at the wide receiver position. Obviously, he doesn't have some of the elite tier seasons that those guys have had. But he's gone over 1,000 yards in 3 straight seasons. I know that's
right.
Not as much as it used to be because it's a 17-game season. We're more pass happy, whatever. But he's over 1,100 in 2 of those 3 seasons. And I mean, it's tough to look across the receiver position and pick a guy who's been paired with both bottom barrel quarterback play, and especially the last 2 years, just this archaic, poorly designed Nathaniel Hackett, Aaron Rodgers based offense. So I'm at least interested to see how he's going to be deployed in New York under Tanner Engstrand. Obviously he's an unknown, but he's the pass game coordinator coming over from Detroit. I can't think of 2 opposite offenses in terms of both how spread out the Jets were and how little pre-snap eye candy there was. Wilson just mostly tethered at that boundary position. I certainly think his usage is going to be more dynamic this year. Whether the production comes with Fields, of course, is another question.
Yeah, I think it's just an instance where my brain, sometimes when you see these contracts, you have to think okay, what's actually the context here? Because when you said sandwich between AJ Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown, that's the kind of when I see $30 million receiver, that's what I'm thinking, AJ Brown just dominating everyone across from you like that. And Garrett can still get there. He's a really, really talented player. And like you said, it's just been some really tough circumstances. And I think these are smart moves for the Jets. I mean, and also when you think about where they are, what else are you going to do with that money? You might as well pay Sauce and Garrett, and you need those guys moving forward. And for any coaching staff that's just getting started, those are two huge guys they're going to have. And especially in Sauce's case, I think there is a good chance he gets back. Like, just too much talent, and there's just also too much proof of concept of him already being a dominant NFL player. Where I just think this is a pretty good fit for him still.
Yeah, what do you think about the fit with Sauce in this defense? It's a little hard to, I guess, pin down because Steve Wilks is the defensive coordinator for Aaron Glenn, so it's not just pure like let's copy paste what they did in Detroit, which was very man coverage heavy. But obviously, coming off like a down season for him, what do we think about how he's going to be used in this defense specifically?
I mean, I would imagine it's still more man coverage than they saw in the past. Because Robert Saleh and that tree, they play a lot more zone. I mean, it's interesting because it's still like zone that ends up becoming man, like with the matching.
Pattern matching, yeah.
Right. So even if like you're playing a lot of quarters in the back end, you can still end up in one-on-one matchups. So it's not like the movements are going to be totally foreign, but maybe I guess maybe the stakes of what's being asked. What I mean by that is like just if you're throwing more zero blitzes in there, there's just not as much leeway for you to have an off game like that because there's no one behind you. Next thing you know, there could be a big touchdown. So it's just like I kind of struggle with this sometimes where you see talented players who have a down season like that, but then like basically everyone had a down season except for Quinnen Williams on that Jets defense. So I just have to assume that some of these guys are going to get back into working order, and Sauce can be one of them. And based on what we saw from Aaron Glenn in Detroit, I know the defense did not end well because they had a bunch of injuries, and we saw how many points they were getting up by the end of the season. But we've seen like those DBs have good moments while he was in Detroit, and none of them were as talented as Sauce Gardner. So hopefully this is a marriage that works for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as long as like he cuts down on some of the penalties and some of the grabbiness in his game, like because that could be accentuated in this style of defense, right? Where it is a lot more man coverage. Of course, the Lions are the ones that tried to get DPI reduced, like not have it not be a spot foul anymore.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. And I think that's definitely something to watch. But otherwise, like his coverage skills, you're so right to point out that. Like some of the way that like these things are charted in terms of like by bigger services, like, oh, this is man coverage, this is zone coverage. It can get pretty, blended anyways, because those match reps turn into man coverage type skills from a receiver and from a cornerback standpoint. So I think this could be like the best season of his career because typically my view with these like players that have down seasons, as long as you're not near the age cliff, which of course is not like an exact number, like typically the cheese isn't going bad there. Like you can still get something good out of that player. So I think it's right to just reward these guys that were like good soldiers on really bad teams. And hopefully that are going to be part of the core of an era that turns it around here for the Jets. One team that doesn't need to turn it around is the Kansas City Chiefs, although obviously their last showing was not a good one, but they gave guard Trey Smith a 4-year, $90 million extension, $70 million guaranteed. He's the highest paid guard in NFL history. Deadline spur action, as the industry likes to say, and they got this one done hours before the 4 p.m. franchise tag deadline, Charles.
Yeah, this was I kind of forgotten about this situation in particular. I totally
forgot about it too. Until the news alert pops up, like they're getting close to this, I was like, oh right, yeah, that's a thing.
That's a thing that needs to happen for them. And man, this is just a perfect moment. I think, to see a player like get a pretty big win. I think because Trey Smith is a good guard. I don't know if I don't think he's the best guard in the NFL. But he's someone that the Chiefs couldn't let walk, especially with the state that we saw their offensive line in the Super Bowl, where it was just demolition derby, and Patrick Mahomes had the worst game of his career, and that game was over by halftime. We've talked about it on the show ad nauseum. A bunch of people have said it, but when Mahomes is your quarterback, like the standard for what needs to be around him is a little bit higher. So this is a deal that had to get done, and now Trey gets to cash in by being the highest picked guard in NFL history. So if he can just stay healthy and I guess stay on top of what makes him such a good guard, the movement skills in the run game, being a solid pass protector at his best, then this is one of those deals that you just kind of forget about because he'll be living up to it. So I like the investment in the offensive line. If Josh Simmons is moving along like they said they are, I mean, this offensive line could be way improved from where they were a year ago. And then we'll just have to see what happens on the interior now that Joe Thuney's over in Chicago. But, this is just one of those things like I had forgotten about it. And then you see it, oh, yeah, that got done. And you think about it for 2 seconds, like, yeah, that needed to get done for everyone involved.
Yeah, of course, like this one just makes sense. And it is a good organization, like getting something done for their guy here. And like Trey Smith has probably had better years than his year last year, but nevertheless, like he's still a really good player. And I did think it was interesting. Obviously, this is like ancient history at this point. It's at least interesting to see their choice to, I think, decide to keep the lesser player in Trey Smith over Joe Thuney, but essentially just opting for youth there because I think that. And look, like Trey Smith could be better than Joe Thuney this year. That wouldn't necessarily surprise me just because Tooney's 33 years old. And of course, like obviously we're remembering Thuney getting whooped at left tackle, but he's a very, very good guard. We all know that. So again, just the age distinction there is interesting from Kansas City's perspective. And I guess from their calculus, Charles, it's probably they don't want to find themselves in this same situation like 2 or 3 years from now, because this was the talking point after their last Super Bowl loss to Tampa Bay. It was like, well, we are never gonna let our offensive line get to that point again. And then shoot, like a few years later here, they're kind of right back in the same position.
Yeah, I mean they've tried some things. They have they had the Jawan Taylor signing, which was. It felt like it ended up becoming more of a meme at points where people were talking about his penalties so much and, the false start controversy, which was just another insane discourse point that just popped back into my head. But they've tried, Jawan Taylor, that contract, they drafted Kingsley Sumataya. That didn't last very long. And then you just kind of find yourself at the end of the season where due to attrition and guys, maybe not being what you thought they were, you just end up with a really, really, really poor offensive line. So I appreciate the swings that they're taking, especially at left tackle with Josh Simmons, because he's a guy where if that pans out and that knee holds up, he's a guy that, we're looking back and say, wow, that was a huge steal at 32 because he's just got all the movement skills in the world. So I think the youth movement is smart because you got Mahomes locked up. You've already got the championships in the rearview mirror. As long as he's your quarterback, you're going to be competing. So it's kind of time to start transitioning towards the next era of what this offense is going to look like. And it seems like they're starting up front and rebuilding there, which I think is a really smart idea. So if you got Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, and then if Josh Simmons, turns out well at left tackle, that's a pretty good trio to build around for the future. And we'll see what happens with Jalen Moore, who they signed from San Francisco.
Final story that we're going to hit on here before we throw to the all average team with Nate. 30 second round draft picks still do not have a contract signed over issues regarding guaranteed money. The only 2 picks that have signed have been Carson Schwessinger and Jaden Higgins. Higgins was the first to sign his deal, and the Texans gave him a fully guaranteed deal, which obviously then with Schwessinger, they're like, well, shoot, I guess we got to do it too. But seems like nobody else wants to cave on this issue, which is interesting. And Charles, I sort of feel like a dumbass sometimes when we talk about these things, and I'm trying to not make like a big deal about it because, dude, I was even tweeting about like Terry McLaurin's contract holdout today. I'm like, what am I doing? They could sign him to a contract like in 3 days, and why am I even feeling any type of way about this? Because sometimes it's just how these things go. Like I said earlier, deadline spur action, but at least one team right now, the deadline is here. Like Trey Harris, wide receiver for the Chargers, 2nd round pick, is already holding out of camp because he doesn't have a contract signed. So I don't know if I want to make a big deal about this, but it is certainly a pervasive story in the NFL. Do you think I should make a big deal out of it?
I think it should be like a medium deal at least, right? Because what happened here, for those who aren't familiar, is Jaden Higgins, the wide receiver that the Texans drafted with a 34th overall pick in the draft. He signed a 4-year, $11 million contract, fully guaranteed. It's the first time ever that a non-first round contract has been fully guaranteed. So as Matt said, he's the 34th pick. Then the 33rd pick, Carson Schwessinger, linebacker from UCLA, who the Browns drafted, he's going to have to need that deal too, right? Like all these deals are based on things that have happened in the past. And once the Jaden Higgins deal is, the ink dries on that contract. That is something that has happened in the past and is a new precedent for agents to try and get money for their contract, for the client. So the Browns, they didn't fight on this. I don't think it's worth fighting on this, to be honest with you. If you're the Browns, why bother? And even if you go back and look at Keon Coleman's contract from last year, he had a 4-year, $10 million contract where $9 million were guaranteed. So we're haggling over, as far as NFL terms go, really small amounts of money. But there is an interesting thing that's kind of happening here at the top where it just kind of seems like all these teams are just waiting for the dominoes to fall on the picks above them. So right now, the next highest pick unsigned is Seattle Seahawks safety Nicky Manwari from South Carolina. And then at 36, you get where I think they just need to kind of just gloss over this and pretend, as far as the agents, not the league, the agents who are negotiating for other clients, when you're looking at what's going on with picks 36, where the Browns picked Quinshon Judkins, who was arrested for domestic violence this weekend. And now, obviously, that is all up in the air as far as what his role is going to be with the team and what his role as far as an NFL player is going to be. So those two situations seem to be playing a role in what's going on here. And as long as they're at this standstill, I don't really know what's supposed to change. What I do know is that training camp starts for the whole league the whole league will be in training camp by the end of next week. You have 30 of 32 second-round picks unsigned. Second-round picks are people that you have reasonable expectation that they could potentially be Pro Bowlers down the road. At the very least, capable starters. These are guys you want to get into your locker room. So I think we're going to see some teams folding a little bit over the next few days. How much will be interesting, but that Jaden Higgins contract, it really threw at the whole second round out of whack, because they're like, well, if he's getting guaranteed money and then Carson gets guaranteed money, then I want my full guaranteed money too. And so now we're here. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, the Seahawks report to training camp on July 23rd. And as you mentioned, Nicky Manwari is the guy who should start that waterfall effect here. I do wonder if the Judkins situation, which of course that's the smallest part of this, is what about the contract guarantees or whatever? I wonder if that throws a wrench into it. But I wanted to kind of throw, and again, like I said, I feel sort of stupid when we talk about this stuff, about, hey, this could all just change, right? This could all just happen by the time we next get on the mics. But I was going to throw the question at you, Charles, which second rounder stands to lose the most from a training camp holdout if it extends too far into camp, if they don't get signed. But honestly, man, the more I looked at it, I think it's there's a lot of guys I could pick that it would be pretty problematic if they miss time, starting with the guy right after Quinshon Judkins, Jonas Savaiinaea, the guard that the Dolphins traded up for. Dude, they need to get him into camp because they probably want him to start this year.
Yeah, I mean, even another Texan second round pick, Ariante Erster, who's also unsigned, he was the 48th pick. Wait, we saw what their offensive line looked like last year, and we saw the moves that they made. They need him to get signed, and not only get signed, but they need him to start and play well this year, because they've made some swings on the offensive line that I think are a little shaky. I think the guy that you just mentioned is going to be holding out. Trey Harris is another guy that could stand to use in NFL camp just to get ingratiated into that offense with a veteran quarterback who already has a top target that he likes. You might want to get in and start getting reps and getting familiar with each other. So
especially with Mike Williams on PUP, there's a clear runway to be that team's X receiver if he was able to get on the field.
Right. And I think the real answer here is we're talking about second round picks. So all of them, just probably all 30 of them need to get in, but there are a few guys where it kind of reminds me of the Shamar Stewart situation, where that is whoa, you need this guy to get in and practice based on the film that we saw from him last year. Why not just move this along and sign him to the deal and then get him in camp so that you can actually start working on improving him as a player? If you're the Bengals, or a team like the Bengals especially, and you have Super Bowl aspirations, first and second round players are players that you need to get that done. And the faster you get them in the camp and the faster they can get working with their teammates and working with the coaches, that's only best for everybody. So I just can't imagine this going on that much longer. I mean, second round holdouts, but hey, the Texans set a new precedent. The Browns also kind of agreed with that because Carson Schwarzenegger got his money, and then everybody else is saying, what about mine? Which is an understandable stance for them to take. And now the NFL has a little bit of a problem on their hands.
Couple other just offensive line situations I throw out here too to watch with this is one, Tate Ratledge of the Detroit Lions. Like, they suddenly need him to potentially start at center, which is a position that he did not play in college, right? I mean, he was a guard, and then they want him to replace Frank Ragnow. You need to get that guy into camp friggin' yesterday. And then same thing with the Bears. Like, they were talking about, hey, Ozzie Trapilo might start at left tackle for us because Braxton Jones coming back from an injury. It's a new team. Well, he's not even in camp. By the way, they made 3 second-round picks this year. Shamar Turner, defensive lineman, and Luther Burden, who missed all of the offseason because he was dealing with a soft tissue injury. So just a couple other situations to pay attention to. Like, there's a few I wouldn't worry too much if they miss a few days of camp. And I guess last one is, by the way, the guy that the Saints probably want to start at quarterback is a second-round pick in Tyler Shuck. You might need to get him into camp here pretty soon, Charles. So like I said, this could all change here pretty quickly, but certainly a situation to monitor and watch going forward. Anything else here before we throw it to the all average team?
NFLPA, get it together. That's all I got.
Well said. Same goes for me, double on that one. All right, we're going to throw to our first break here. We come back on the other side. Nate is going to join us, and we're going to talk through our all average team, the most average player at every NFL position, right after this.